Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I hope everybody's out there doing very well. Today we'll be trying to make a machine that will allow us to play Warzone, but for as cheap as possible. And of course, the goal is to get to as close as to 60 FPS as possible, since that is actually like the sweet spot for most gamers. For this, we'll be using the Lenovo ThinkServer TS130 that I have right here. I was lucky enough to get this for free after asking a computer company if I could have it. They didn't quite need it anymore. It was already 9 years old anyways, and most companies either they sell it really cheap or they're actually willing to give it away if you just ask. Just as a reference, I did come across this on eBay for about $73 with the same internals. Well, not the same internals, but around the same internals. And I did notice that somebody was selling this exact unit at $115 on Facebook Marketplace. So you can actually find this for cheap somewhere else. But the craziest thing is that I actually come across this unit before at a Goodwill outlet center for like $20 to $30 bare bones, which means yes, you are going to need a RAM upgrade and you are going to need a hard drive to put in it, or else you can't use it. But the fact that it's $20 to $30 and it allows you to put anything you want in it, that is an amazing deal. So if you have an outlet, a Goodwill outlet somewhere near you, you should probably check that out. So this machine usually comes with an i3, a Pentium processor, or a Xeon processor. Ours, on the other hand, actually ended up coming with an i7 2700K. So I'm assuming that the company either upgraded or they just changed the processor at some point. Maybe the K series was more beneficial to them in whatever they were doing with the machine. So not only did ours come with a 2700K, it also came with 16 gigs of RAM. It is DDR3 and it's also running at 1333 megahertz, but I mean, yeah. We are adding the 500 gig hard drive to it. It is a 7200 RPM hard drive. This is just for testing. Since you can get those really cheap now, I didn't want to add an SSD and kind of just bring the cost up. The only bad part about this is that we did not get a GPU with our system. I think this one usually comes with a Quadro, but a GPU was not included. I assume they took it out at some point. Okay, so once I installed Windows and installed the game, I went ahead and decided to just try to run the game just to see if it could, the way it is, just to see if it could. No GPU added or anything like that. And it was just not happening. I kept getting an unrecoverable DirectX error, which wouldn't let me launch the game at all. Like, it would start loading and halfway through it, it would just give me the error and that was it. It would just shut down again. Also, for those of you who know the launch commands for Blizzard, I did try launching it with DirectX 11, but it still did not work. And those that don't know it, I believe it's dash 3D311 to launch it with DirectX 11, but I don't have any luck with that either. So what does this mean? Well, it means we need a graphics card. But we don't have a graphics card. And we don't want to spend a lot of money. So I ended up getting myself a GTX 950 for $30 from a coworker. He was selling this off. He had already upgraded his, and I ended up testing it. It worked, so I went with the cheap route. Hopefully, this is enough to do what we need to do with it. But I mean, it's 30 bucks. So one thing I forgot to mention: the computer only comes with a 280 watt PSU. Meaning that there's a limitation in power consumption. So the 950, I believe, should be okay with this. It is a 6-pin connector on it. It's not a high power graphics card, so it should be able to run it. But of course, as all of this kind of things happen, I ran into an issue. I forgot to check the power supply connectors. So I just assumed that it was going to have a 6-pin. It does not have a 6-pin. What does this mean? It means I need a converter, or I need an adapter of some sort. So I was going to go online and buy myself a Molex or a SATA to 6-pin adapter, but I decided to just use whatever I had on hand. I went through my boxes and found a Molex splitter from 1 to 2 Molex, and then I found a adapter from 2 Molex to a 6-pin. Yeah, that sounds super ghetto and just, yeah, it sounds terrible, but if it works, it works. That's what I had on hand. If you are interested in finding an adapter though, I have seen them as low as $3 on eBay or Amazon or other places online. Up to like $10 depending on the quality that you want. Just be very careful. I have purchased adapters in the past from eBay where I plugged it into my power supply and it immediately fried my board. So just be very careful. I would probably spend a little bit extra, a couple extra dollars just to get a higher quality version of it. Okay, so we got our Molex on, our adapters on, we got the graphics card on, I installed the drivers, and it launched. It actually launched. Super excited about that. I'm glad that it's working. Obviously, a GTX 950 is going to launch the game. First impressions, though. I knew it wasn't going to be great, but I didn't think it was going to look that terrible as it did. I had to go ahead and play with the settings a little bit, just to kind of try to get it to where it didn't look super blurry or super like I was playing Minecraft or something. Even though Minecraft probably looks a lot better than the initial first boot on this thing. So the first thing I wanted to do was running at native resolution. The problem with that is it was too laggy. Running at a 1080p on that card with that processor, with that RAM, it was super laggy. I was getting very low frame rate and it was just choppy. So I had to lower the resolution. So I tried lowering the resolution scale first, so keeping it at the native 1080p and then just lowering it. But it turned out that it was way too blurry. I couldn't see anything, and anytime I got into a fight or tried to aim at anything, it was just a complete blur. It was a mess. I also tried running the Nvidia Sharpening tool, like an overlay that they have now, the Nvidia GeForce. And I also tried playing a little bit more with the settings, but it's just I could not get it to the point to where I could even see what I was shooting. It was very, very annoying. So my next option was to reduce the native resolution. So it's no longer scaling. I'm actually going to go down to a native lower resolution. So here are the settings that worked for me, at least on this machine. I mean, it would depend on what you have in yours, but I run the game at full screen. The resolution is set to 1366 times 768. That's like the spot. I set the anti-aliasing, or however you say that word, to SMAA T2X, and all other settings to their lowest. I did keep the caching, I think it's the RAM caching or shadow caching, enabled, and this actually gave me anywhere from 45 to 60 FPS. Now I know that sounds like, oh yeah, it's still under 60 FPS, but depending on what you're doing in the game, it could go down to 45. But it mostly constantly stayed around 55 to 60 FPS, which made the game playable. And the visibility was a little bit better now. So if you could probably tell from the video here, once I could see what I was doing and it felt a little bit better, I actually started making plays. I actually started killing people, which, awesome. That's all we want, right? Just to be able to play the game. So in conclusion, should you do this? Should you get these parts? Should you get this machine or something similar to it? Well, if you want to just be able to play the game with like your friends and you're just trying to have fun and you don't want to be super competitive, I guess if you can get it for cheap, or if you can get some hand-me-down parts from somebody, or maybe something free from a store that doesn't want it, or maybe you got somebody gave them to you or traded you these things, yeah, I would say try it. If you are super competitive though, if you are the type of person that always wants to win, that you cannot rely on just playing the game, you want to win, it might not be the greatest idea, just because the game still felt a little choppy at times. Definitely if there was a lot of people around or little firefights, it could lag, and that could be the difference between you getting the kill or you getting killed. So if you're the competitive type, probably stay away from this. It actually could have been better if I just spent a little bit more money on a better graphics card. Maybe like a GTX 970, which is technically about 25% better than a 1050, just to relate with last generations, in most cases. And the fact that I only spent $30 on this because I got the unit for free and I had the other parts on hand, I probably should have spent slightly more. I have found the 970 Go for as low as $75 on eBay. Now, some people do sell it for more, but you do have other options. If you really want to get the better frame rate out there, just save a little bit more money, get a better graphics card. That's probably the safest bet. Now, keep in mind though, the processor is also a bottleneck once you go into a higher graphics card bracket. So the 2700K is probably not going to do well with a higher graphics card. It'll still probably feel terrible. I have noticed this with another unit that I had in the past, where I put an RX 580 with an i7 4770. Is it 4770 or 4790? One of those, not the K series. And then once I upgraded that unit, that processor, to an i7 6700K, the same RX 580 increased the whole system. It increased in frames by a lot. It was a complete difference, and also there was no stuttering and all that. I gotta say though, for the small cost that I had to pay for what I needed to get, the $30, this wasn't bad. I mean, I was able to play the game. Yeah, it's not crazy frame rate, but I was able to play the game. It's a free-to-play game with it on the really, really cheap machine. You know, yeah, you're not playing at 1080p, but you're still able to play the game. All right, guys, that's it for this video. If this helped you, if this was informative, if it was just entertaining or whatever, make sure you share this video and hit that subscribe button. I might be able to get my hands on more old equipment and see what they're like trying to play Warzone, or maybe some other kind of more current game, or what's current at the time. But thanks again, and I'll see you on the next video.